Welcome to Culmination, where we're not experts, but we sure have a lot to say. In the process of becoming our best self, I have with me the research assistant Rishi Verma to discuss humility. And with that, let's get started. Simply, what is humility?
To me, I would say that humility is just it means that you don't think that you're better than anyone. Um, it's also about not thinking that you're less than anybody else. It's recognizing like um, your own strengths and your own weaknesses, and you don't think of yourself as above or being just better than other people.
So kind of like a middle ground, right?
Yeah, I think um, there can be a bit of a trap there where um, in the pursuit of humility, you just start to get such a low value of yourself that you don't respect yourself. And I think it ties a little bit into self-esteem there, where um, you don't advocate for yourself. But on the other hand, if you have too much of an ego, and you're not even humble at all, and you think that you're better than everybody else, it's really off-putting and it puts a strain on relationships. So you're trying to look for that kind of middle ground where you're still advocating for yourself while
Mm-hmm.
being kind of humble. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. It's kind of like I'm pretty sure referenced this on the show, but just kind of like an idea of a constant regulation, like in your mind, you know?
Yeah.
Like every time, like let's say you start on the lower end of things where it's like you're very you're very humble, but you have low self-esteem, low confidence. Um, so you try to, like find the middle point because you're too much on the low end, but you overextend a bit. So then you have too much of an ego. You have too much confidence to the point where it's hurting you. So at that point, you need to kind of dial it back. And it's almost like every time you kind of miss the mark a little bit, but each time you get closer to the center. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that describes it pretty well, where you need to kind of observe yourself and catch yourself and say, where am I on this spectrum? Um, and yeah, like you said, you try to regulate, you try to get closer towards that, I guess, quote unquote ideal or whatever. Um, but I mean, you're never really there. It's always about uh, either putting a step forward, towards that, where you're trying to be more assertive about yourself and
Yeah.
having more confidence, versus maybe taking a step back and saying, I also need to see what other people have to say.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah, so this is kind of an interesting question, but do you think it's more like a personality trait or an attribute of somebody or more of a mindset,
Um,
like an idea rather than like a trait? What do you think?
I think it's more of a mindset. Like, I think it's kind of just an approach to how you live a bit. Like,
Uh-huh.
um, when we talk about humility, it's about the way you view yourself, right? You're not viewing yourself as, again, as we were talking about, as better than others. You're always um, seeing what other people have to say. You're always interested in others. It's
Yeah.
just a mindset to how you approach interactions,
Uh-huh.
and how you approach talking to other people, where you're not thinking, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, I know better. That's kind of what happens if you have a really big ego. But
Uh-huh.
it's just, yeah, I would classify it as an approach.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I just thought it was like kind of an interesting thought of like Well, if it was like almost like a personality trait, rather than like an approach, it's like that explains why some people are naturally humble, like maybe like a predisposition of where you are on that spectrum, that rather than the spectrum being like a mental concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think like if you say an approach that like I think it's an approach but that almost feels, and quite falsely so, but it feels that it's easy to change, or something that you can just be like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll be like more humble or less humble just on a whim. And it's not
Hmm.
that. Like with personality traits, we have this more thing about like a spectrum where you're like it takes effort and it takes time to change. So I guess in that
Yeah.
way it's kind of like a personality trait in that it's not just something you can do on the snap of your fingers.
Right. Well, it's like definitely like it's an approach in terms of how you can kind of shift the way you view life and everything. Like you can try to take action to become more humble, but at the same time, it's almost like it's your nature, you know? Like some people are their nature is just being humble, like not really wanting all that attention. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's like a nature that you can kind of shift, but it
Yeah.
takes time.
Yeah, like I think definitely less so than like I know you talked a little bit on this show about extroversion or introversion. Those
Mhm.
are a little, I feel a little bit more set in stone, where
Yeah.
it's kind of how you feel after an interaction, how yeah, versus I would say this is still like it's more conscious, where like rather as something that you can change,
Yeah.
um, but it still has those elements of a personality trait where it's difficult to shift, difficult to change, and there's like predispositions, like you said, where like
Mhm.
some people prefer to be outside of the spotlight versus others prefer to be in the spotlight. They want attention, and
Yeah.
I think like that specific aspect might be a personality trait.
Well, now that you say that, do you think there's you brought up these points, but like um do you think that humility kind of plays a part with introverts and extroverts? Like kind of going off how we've been saying, do you think that like for an example, introverts are more humble just because they want less attention from like crowds of people or whatnot?
Um, I suppose, yeah, I think, I mean, I have no evidence to back this up, but
Yeah,
I feel,
correlation doesn't equal causation, but yeah.
yeah. But I feel like you're onto something there where like an extrovert is probably more comfortable with larger groups of people, is
Mhm.
at least more comfortable being in the center of attention,
Yeah.
while an introvert might just not like when everyone's eyes are on them, and that might
Yeah.
actually shape their kind of humility where they don't want to be in the center of attention, and so they try to be, I guess, um, more humble and not try to like talk about like their accomplishments or things like that.
Mhm. It's definitely interesting, although, I mean, the more I think about it, it's like, well, there are like, I mean, there can be introverts who are egomaniacs, and then there's like very
Yeah,
humble like extroverts. So like, really like bringing up that again, it's like it's just about energy levels. So it doesn't actually have anything to do with like
yeah. This is more
humility or
talking
other
about
traits.
the stereotype rather than the,
Right.
I guess, straight up definition of introverts and like how energized you feel after, I guess, group
Right.
interactions.
Yeah, I guess it was definitely the stereotypical side that made me think of it, but still, it's like usually like the quieter people tend to be more humble. But then again, I don't know. You can't really make prejudgments.
Yeah, I mean, this is all we're just talking about in generalities, and of
Right.
course, you need to remember that each person's different. Each person is shaped by their interactions, by the people around them, and it turns out differently for everybody.
Yeah. So now I want to get into this. So describe to me somebody who, not like a real person, but like a theoretically someone who's humble, someone who exhibits humility. Like, what would a person like that look like?
Yeah, so again, when you're being humble, it's a person who um always, I guess, listens to other people first, and is always like curious about other people, and is always kind of listening, yeah, like putting other people first, where you realize that we're um, like they're contributing, they have things to say, but they recognize that I might not be the expert, and even if I do have even if I do have like maybe I am the expert, maybe I do have things to contribute, but
Mhm.
other people also have their own strengths, and everyone else also has things to contribute. And so I guess I view it as almost like an awareness,
Hmm.
um, where you're um, kind of know like knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, um, and seeing what other people have to contribute. Does that kind of answer the
Yeah.
question? I don't know.
Um. Well, I mean, yeah, it does. Um. I guess I was thinking of something more anecdotally, but do you want to tell the class about? Obviously, not a class, but do you want to tell everyone kind of like your own like stories about how you've been humble in situations?
Yeah, so um personally, like, so I personally get very frustrated by bragging.
Okay.
Um and it's like, I don't know, it's one of the few things that really gets on my nerves, and it's the one of the few things that really annoys me to my core.
Really?
Um yeah,
Why is
it's
that?
um I think bragging starts to bring out like this like jealousy or competitiveness. Like, so we like, and I know I felt irked when someone's like, especially if it's in something that I know a lot about, like math or computer science, and someone starts like bragging about something, and then like I start to feel like a
Like
little
you're
bit,
at their level?
sorry?
Like you're at their level already, so it's like
Yeah,
he's
or it's like,
bragging and he's not even like super above you?
no, not in that way, but like a
Oh.
jealousy kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, well I also know that, and like, why do you get the recognition? And it just it it makes me feel you um like you're forcing everybody to just like, you're showing off, um
Mhm.
where like, yes, I would like to learn about what you did, but I would like to like understand it fully. And I don't like when I feel like bragging, it's often brought up in a context where it's not really relevant,
Hmm.
right? At least that's where I like, where I've seen it, where like we're talking about something, and then like, I don't want to get into specifics or name any names or anything like
Uh-huh.
that.
Yeah.
We're having a conversation about something, and something gets brought up, like an obscure topic, and then someone feels the need, rather than talk about it or um like explain their views on it, they need to like
Mhm.
show that, like, hey, I know about this. um and so that irks me a lot.
Yeah. And there's like a distinction between, like, wanting to tell somebody about your accomplishment genuinely, and then just, just not like, just
Yeah,
bragging or trying to, like, compete with status or whatnot. Like, it's the difference between, like, "Rishi, like, I got into my dream school, man, like, dude, I'm so excited," and then it's like, "Yeah, I made it into the Ivy Leagues."
yeah, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. It's where, like, you can talk about like many of the exact same things, but I guess the way you say it,
And
where
also
when
the
you're,
intention.
yeah, where here you're doing it, like with the first case, you're doing it out of genuine excitement, genuine interest,
Yeah,
while in the second case, it's just so that, like, hey, I'm like I'm better than you, or I know
yeah,
this and you don't, or um like another thing that gets me sometimes a little irritated is when, like, we're talking about something and, like, in class, and someone's like, or yeah, I knew that. Like,
like
it
the
kind of,
hindsight bias.
yeah, it kind of takes away from, sure, like, you read up on this, you know about the subject. We've all had points in, like, class where we're talking about something that, like, maybe we read about earlier, but
Yeah,
I feel like it takes away from the teaching, and it takes away from the flow of um the conversation, where when we start, like, trying to show off or brag.
mhm,
Um, yeah.
right.
Sorry, I don't think I
Um,
actually ever answered the original question, which is to say that, like, so my approach is then, to humility is kind of
okay, yeah,
like, um I mean, I think we all feel those times where, like, it's kind of instinctive nature, like, we wanna show off, we wanna like, if we do something, we wanna just, like, show everybody, like, um, "Hey, like, I did this." But, like, I try to think about, like, does it add to the conversation? Does it belong here, or am I just saying this, like, because, like, maybe I'm a little bit insecure about it, I just wanna, like, show everybody, like, "Hey, I know this." So, kind of thinking about when I say something, like, does it belong here? If that makes
yeah,
sense.
mhm. It's just like sometimes things aren't needed to be said.
Yeah. I was thinking about, like, is this genuine? Is this, like, something I'm bringing towards the conversation? Or is it just me, like, I want everybody to know how smart I am?
Mhm. So, some of these questions might sound kind of like, "No duh," or whatnot, but why do you think why would someone want to brag? Or has there ever been a point where you felt like you would wanna brag?
Yeah. And I would say lots of times, like, um, I think we reward bragging in a way, right? Like, people people want recognition for what they do. Everybody, if you do something cool, you want everybody to know about it.
Yeah,
uh you want recognition, and that's not wrong, right?
yeah,
Everybody should, like, when you do an accomplishment, when you do something cool, you want people to see that you've done it, oftentimes.
mhm,
And, like, when we think about in work or in the classroom, you don't get, like, rewarded if people don't know about what you did, right?
mhm,
Like, when you think about, I guess this is more applicable to the workplace, but, like,
yeah,
you won't get promoted if you do the super cool project and you don't show off to your boss, right?
Yeah.
You have to like brag to him, like tell them like, oh, I did this huge thing, I did that. Um, and so in that way, we kind of reward bragging, and that's
But keep in mind the distinction between yeah, boss, look at what I did. Like I did this and this and this and this and this, and I did that, and I'm just all over the place. I'm crazy. You need to promote me. Versus yeah, I mean, I did my regular work, and then I did some extra things today, and I just kind of wanted to keep the office tidy and everything, and just like basically just like a humble, genuine way. And I feel like that
yeah,
would probably aid you in the long run because they're like, oh, like he did a lot and he was respectful about it. Like maybe I'll consider promoting him.
yeah. I think that's kind of coming into that like distinction between bragging and being like an advocate for yourself, right? That you can't
Mhm.
just be in the shadows. You need to be assertive, which
Yeah,
is
but
like,
it's interesting to note that they're kind of like the same source, but different approach.
yeah. And it's a very like I think it's a very fine line where um like expression I think is kind of similar, but the sentiment is very different. Where like the idea that you're trying to communicate that like, hey, I did this, um, and
Yeah.
like you guys like I think this is cool, and I think you guys should see this. But it's the way you express that and how you, yeah, it's the way you express it and the way you go about it.
Also, what's interesting is kind of like what's more effective and also why we hate bragging, if you think about it, is that like when you're just being genuine and telling somebody about your accomplishments, when you do it in a sort of inclusive way, it's like that's that might be the distinction. Exactly. Like, because it's like, boss, I did all this extra work to help the company, like inclusive, or
Yeah,
I wanted to help the team, or like I donated a ton of money to charity, like see kind of these like inclusive aspects to it. But when you're just bragging, it's only about you. And that's okay. But I mean, frankly, most people don't want to just hear about what you did or just hear about you, you know?
yeah. A really interesting point you brought up there. And it's reminding me of like in health class where we were talking about I statements versus you statements.
Mhm.
Um, where you want to bring the other people in. People like don't just want to hear about you.
Yeah.
And I think when you like when you at least in my personal experience, when I hear someone bragging, that kind of turns me off. While like when I when I hear someone talk in the manner you described, where you're kind of bringing them in, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I wish I could do that. And it's kind of
Uh-huh.
aspirational where I'm like, I really want to do that too. Versus,
Yeah.
oh, you did that. Well, hey, I did this. I think bragging sometimes
Yep.
brings out that competitiveness where we're all trying to one up each other versus this approach kind of is more collaborative and more
Right.
everybody pulling each other up. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point you brought up.
Yeah. I mean, competition can be good sometimes, um but in this case I feel like it's not only that bragging is competitive, but it's more hostile. Like when someone brags, like it's not like the way you react it is kind of intended to be negative. Like I don't think it's it's not really trying to make you feel better. But also like when it feels inclusive, like something you want to do, or like frankly, it's something you care about. Like when you hear somebody brag, for instance, like what do you get out of it? It's like, oh, okay, so you got accepted into like this highly elite school, or okay, you built a bottle rocket that made its way to Neptune. Like,
Yeah.
something absurd like that. And it's like, what do you get out of that? Like it might be neat, but the reason why it turns you off, like you said, and why you just might not care is because there's no like substance behind it. It's like because there's no meaning to you. It's like, oh, he's just and like, I know I'm kind of jumbling here, but like combined with the hostile kind of nature to it, it's just kind of a mess. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
for you to relate to, you know?
Yeah, and I think that kind of ties into like I think what we discussed a little bit earlier is that it's a bit disruptive, right?
Yeah.
Because it takes away from kind of this genuine conversation or what's going on because you again it's centered around yourself rather than
Mhm.
the broader conversation.
Yeah. By the way, I bench pressed like 400 pounds the other day.
Oh
Just wanted to
wow.
let you know. Just out of nowhere.
Yep, I'm glad you told me.
Yeah. All me.
That makes my life a lot better.
No help whatsoever. In fact, I did it with my pinkies alone.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Bet you couldn't do that.
Well, did you know that I lifted oh god, I can't even think of anything right now.
Well,
I
what's interesting there is your initial reaction was like you were immediately placed in the defensive. Because if you don't say a comeback, you're going to look small.
yeah.
Isn't that
You,
interesting?
yeah, like that's exactly it. You need to have a that's like how like if we think about this joke, like I've heard this like a similar play like I did this, no, I did this, like even if it's in a joking manner, it
Yeah.
always plays out the same way where everyone's trying to one up each other.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it always ends up this way where um, people are like not seeing the best in themselves, but not seeing the best in each other, right? Where you like the person who's being bragged to might not even appreciate the thing that like the cool thing that the bragger has done.
Yeah.
Um, where it's like my first thought is, well, how much can I press and how much can I like what could I do rather than wow, like wow, you can lift a lot with your pinkies. That's
Yeah.
amazing. You should go to like a bodybuilding competition or whatever,
Mhm.
weightlifting competition. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like bragging is just kind of like it's like you tell people because you want them to be envious of you.
Exactly, yeah.
Like you're not telling them because you want them to feel proud of you or like be genuinely like impressed. Like they just want you to kind of feel like oh wow, this man's like the guy. And it's just very demeaning because like then you like if you're receiving the brag, it's like, "Oh crap, what did I do today? I just
Yeah.
sat on my bed and watched YouTube all day. I can't lift 2 pounds with my hands, nonetheless my pinkies."
Yeah, and I think it's also on the for the person who's bragging, I think it's like if they're going for like getting attention or getting
Mhm.
um like envy as you had said, I feel
Yeah.
like that's also a little bit superficial. Not envy or, uh, that feeling in itself, but just the way, like, your words elicited. It's not a kind of healthy or necessarily genuine appreciation, um, versus a different way of portraying the same thing, like, when you're
Yeah.
talking about, like, lifting things with your pinkies, I would have, like, a more genuine admiration,
Mhm.
uh, for you. So, like, even on your end, it's at least I think it feels better when you get that kind of like, genuine interest in what you're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
versus, maybe the reaction that bragging might elicit.
Yeah. And really, like now this doesn't apply like, not everyone who brags, like, is sad or anything, like, you can, like, brag every once in a while and not be a bad person, but, like, I feel like people who do it consistently probably feel like I mean, you've probably heard this, that the bully just projects their own pain onto someone, but, like, someone who brags, like, they're probably it's kinda weird, it's like, we just described how the receiver kind of feels small, but it's like the bragger feels even smaller than them, so they feel compelled to compensate by trying to one up them with the first strike.
Yeah, I think, um, it's also, like, um, a bit of insecurity, and I've seen that in myself where, um, if I'm, like, maybe not the best about something or I'm not very, like, secure about that, like, what I'm doing,
Mhm.
then I wanna, like, brag about, "Hey, I got this amazing score," or, "Hey, I did this thing," so that, like, to feel better about myself or to feel like, um, "Yes, I did this," kind of to instill that confidence in myself, which is not the healthiest way of doing it, and that's why I try to catch myself
It's
whenever I
kinda like
start
filling a
feeling that way.
hole rather than fixing the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Like, rather than appreciating for yourself what you've done, you have to, like, show off in a way that kind of makes others appreciate what you did.
Right. But,
Um,
like so with this said, it's like I mean, obviously, we covered a lot of bad things about bragging and just egos in general, but, what's so good about humility? Like, you purposefully, like, do good deeds or good things going unnoticed or taking upon all these projects and cool things that, like you don't get a reward or appreciation or even when you do, it's like you don't even get to, like, like, expel all your energy out there, like, you just take it and say, like, "Thanks." Like, I mean, you're appreciative, but you don't, like, you don't I can't think of the right word, but, like, relish in it, I guess?
yeah. Um,
Like, why humility? Why would you want that?
I I think it's about being more, I still think it's about being more genuine, where when you're, um, being humble, it's not about, like, not getting recognition for what you do or things going unnoticed. I don't think
Mhm.
that's quite what, um, humility is, but more so that try to, you try to, like, help others up without feeling that kind of, like, feeling of superiority, and I think that can come up, like, I'm thinking the example is with teaching someone, and when you're helping someone learn a new concept,
Mm,
sometimes you can feel like, "Hey, I got this so quickly," or, "Hey, I already know this. Why are you taking so long to figure this out?"
right.
Um, versus with being more humble, you kind of accept that yes, I may have gotten this faster. You understand yourself, but you wanna put others first, where you trying to, without judgment, trying to help them forward.
Or really just understand. Like
Yeah,
even if you're not putting them ahead of you, just like understanding that, all right, like I got this math concept very quickly. I ace all the tests. But like my friend over here just isn't. And it's not because I'm smarter than him or anything. It's just like, I don't know, we're programmed different. He's a heck of a lot smarter than me in other aspects. I mean, just as a side note, like intelligence is just a really interesting thing because there's like academic smarts, you know, like your science and your math, like the things that just work, I guess. Like 2 + 2 = 4 and it will always be
right.
4. But then there's like philosophical intelligence. Then there's just competence, which is like practical skills. Like I hand you, like if you're like extremely competent and practical, I can just like hand you a screwdriver, say go fix my house, and you'll just do it. You'll just do it with like little to no questions. You know, like you can like completely fail your classes or whatever, but if you're competent, you can be way more smart than any academic could be, like just with practical skills. But like that's the thing, there's so many different intelligences and intelligii.
Yeah. And that's something that I like genuinely believe, that everyone has their own strengths and everyone has those things that they're good at.
Yeah.
And just like as a side note, like they say like the best CEOs are the ones who are like C or D students, because
Oh.
they're like, even if like they didn't do as well in school, they're creative and they have like the business intelligence that they need
Mm.
to do well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so like I know personally, like I've done well academically, like I know that I'm a good test taker. I've done well in school, but at the same time I've done poorly in other areas. I'm not all that creative. I wouldn't say that, like, I hate to call myself incompetent, but when you're talking about competence, like I don't have that skill, at least not that much. And
Yeah,
so
and like you're not incompetent. It's just like specifically if we're giving it an operational definition, it's like competent as in practical skills. Just
yeah,
disclaim. Yeah.
right.
You're not incompetent, but like in this case,
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. And
yeah.
so humility is about seeing all of that, recognizing all of that, and not feeling superior, like me
Right.
thinking, hey, I've gotten an A, so that means I'm better than anyone else. Or
Mhm.
conversely, that if someone like does really poorly in a class or does really poorly at something, it's not thinking
Yeah.
that, hey, I'm terrible, I'm worse than everybody else. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing, well, I'm not that good at this, but I'm good at other things.
Sure.
And yeah,
And you can always work on your weaknesses too. It's not like you're just doomed, you know?
yeah, I mean, there's always something to work on. And with that kind of understanding, that realizing that, like, when you're not being narcissistic,
Mhm.
I think you have a little bit more awareness
Yeah.
of what your flaws are. And you're willing to accept that, hey, I might be wrong.
Uh-huh.
And when you realize that, that's kind of, I think, the first step towards um, working on that, is realizing I'm not good at this.
Mhm.
Okay, now how can I improve on it?
Now here's a bit of food for thought. Kind of back to what you were saying about like yourself, how like you're very academically intelligent, but like lower on the like practical skills. And I feel like with myself, like personally, I think I'm very creative, I guess. Like
Hmm.
I'm kind of like an innovator, I guess. Like I can just kind of make things happen. Like
Like this
uh
podcast, for example.
yeah, like this podcast, it was like I had a simple idea, like like, I should make a podcast, like, you know, like a one-off joke with a friend. And then it's like, well, actually, let's do this. So then I just like, grinded for like a week, like not even like 2 or whatever. I just like get it done. I don't know how I did it or how I had the drive or like I got the connections and all of these things. And it's like, I don't know. I'm getting into that, but I'm not really I'm not even bragging, because the thing is, it's like, these are just like short burst things. This is my strength. I guess I'm just like an innovator, creative type. And like, I guess academically I'm like above average. So it's pretty good. I don't want to sell myself short, but like when it comes to practical skills, oh boy, like you can, if I'm going through if I'm walking through a city and I'm like, hey sir, can you point me to that coffee shop? And he's like, yeah, just make a left there and then go straight. And then like 32 feet forward, you like make a right. And it's like, all right, can you start with the first direction again? Nope, I can't do this. So, I mean, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses, but what I wanted to say is, like, now that I explain myself and you explain yourself, I just think, like, what's really beautiful, like, honestly beautiful, when you like, kind of look within yourself, you know your limitations, you know your strengths, you don't sell yourself short, but also you don't, like, you're not a god, so you can't. You have some limitations on yourself, but like, and I can just say this from experience, like when I work with you, we like combine our strengths and like make up for our weaknesses essentially.
Yeah.
So like,
I feel the same way, where kind of our strengths kind of lie in somewhat different areas, and then when we bring them together, it kind of adds up.
yeah, let's tell the story about the app for an example. Like, I'll let you explain it. Like, tell us about how you made the app. What is the app? Because yeah, just explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I can briefly talk about the app, where basically it was for Tag Day, which is an annual fundraiser in the district, where
For band.
for band, where all of the music students basically on one Saturday morning go out and try to solicit donations from every house in the district. And so what I did was I built an app for the process, which just kind of had Google Maps and recorded which houses you had to visit and recorded that stuff. The more important for, like, I guess this podcast is, once, like, I know that I can code, like computer science is one of my strengths. That part was easy for me. That's like something I knew how to do, versus then it came to I realized, hey, we have to make an instructional video for this, where we have to kind of show others how to use this, especially like the parents and the volunteers. And I realized that I have absolutely no idea how to do this. Like, I have no idea where to begin. I don't know what to do. And so that's when I guess I reached out to you, because I knew you'd done some recording stuff in the past. And I mean, do you want to describe some stuff from there?
Yeah, so basically he just came to me, told me about, like, okay, we need to make an instructional video, and I guess I just, like, in terms of my strength, like, I was like, all right, you need a video? Well, I guess this is kind of how I think a video would work. So I was like, all right, well, let's just make a script. We'll write the script, then I'll record the script, and then we record your phone going through the app, and then I'll just run it through iMovie or whatever program and just kind of make a video. Like, I mean, the
Yeah,
way I'm explaining
exactly.
this is so nonchalant, but I think that kind of explains why it might be my strength. It's like, oh yeah, you just did the thing and you do that. And I bet for you making the app, it was like yeah, you just type in these codes. Like
Yeah, um, and, um, I think, it was just really cool how, like, we each have these different strengths, but, like,
right,
realizing that, hey, what we can do together is more than what we can necessarily do alone.
right.
And I think like the humility aspect of it is like not going at it alone, or like, I guess in my case, not trying to uh just like saying like, okay, this is my app, I'm gonna do it all. Let me push through this, let me just make a video, and it's saying like, hey, my friend Casey here, like this is his strength. This is something that he's amazing at, and he did it
Mhm.
amazingly. And I couldn't be happier with the results. So
Yeah,
I think that's how it ties into kind of that humility.
yeah. And even still, it's just like I got it was a good video. Like it just was a good video, but
Yeah,
I mean it was, but
yeah. I mean, there's nothing like. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong in stating it like that. Like
yeah.
it's it was a good video, and that's not bragging, and that's not like overstating anything. But it turned out well, and I think that's just, sorry for like digressing here, but it's something
Oh
else
yeah.
to remember, that like being humble doesn't mean shying away from what you've done.
Mhm.
Like realizing, hey, I made this and it was good, and
Mhm.
that's important. Like coming back to like your own self-esteem and your own confidence is realizing when you've done something well, and being willing to realize for yourself, or at least accept others' praise, even if you don't necessarily go out seeking it.
Yeah. And what I was going to say is it's like it's not my video. Like I was helping you. I worked with you for most of it. I was at your house using your equipment to record. Like this was both of us working together. And
Right.
also this is your app. So what real credit am I going to take from this? Um and I'm not going to take credit for your app because I had no part in it, like as simple as that. But I don't know, we just worked together. During the fundraiser itself, I actually helped you with the booth. Although I wasn't much help because I knew nothing about the technical sides. But wait,
I
what
mean,
did I even do there?
you helped a lot. You helped with like responding to like
Oh yeah,
parents who were texting. Like you helped me with the password resets and that stuff.
yeah. I wasn't doubting my ability. I literally forgot what I did.
Yeah,
I know I did something for 3 hours, but still.
what it was.
Hmm. But yeah, just really, I guess the big picture here is um, play to your strengths, know your weaknesses. If you can, work on your weaknesses, especially if they're like actually like intrusive, like negatively intrusive to other people's lives, like a bad habit, or like bragging or being mean to somebody, like working on those weaknesses. Um, Knowing when it's time to ask for help, like if you're feeling down or like if you're trying to do something physical, like if you need to lift a box because you're moving, like ask for help, man. Like don't rip your back. or,
Yeah, that's, and
you
like
know,
I think physically, and also like I think there is often a reluctance to say I'm wrong or I need help with something, like
exactly.
because it feels like we're doing something wrong. Like it feels like you're admitting to yourself that you're not smart. Like
Yeah, and that you're weak.
yeah, that you have to go and like go like in classes. It's always like you have to go up to someone and ask for help, and it's like it's like saying I can't do this, but it's important to say I can't do this, and you need to know when you can't do this, and then someone will help you do this, and then maybe in the future you can help others who can't do this.
Right. I mean, right here, I just want to say that, like, I mean, obviously, this is a message you, the listener, has probably already heard countless times. Um, and I just kind of want to say, like, I really do get it. Like, I get it when you don't want to ask for help because you just feel so crappy. Like, actually, this, like, I was doing like a stats assignment, or like, almost every stats assignment, and like I'm like Rohan, Rohan from who did the locus of control video with me. I'm just like, man, like I know how to do this, but I also don't. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know how to do this. I think I do, and then I turn the thing in, and then I get bad grade. Rohan, help me. I mean, it's not all about the grade, but like still, um,
yeah,
like, can you help me out, man? Like, I know I ask you every single time there's a dang progress check, but like, I don't know.
yeah, and like you're getting better as a result. Like it,
Right.
um, it's hard. It might not like stats might not just be one of your strengths, but like you're working through it, and you did that first step, and like you're not afraid to keep asking for help, which I think is like something else that's really important. Like it's not just like a one-time thing where okay, I was wrong, okay, and I can do it now. It's
Well,
um,
honestly, sometimes, as simple as it sounds and as hard as it sounds, you just kind of have to swallow your pride, man.
One, two,
Like,
one, two, three,
think
four.
about, like, sometimes you just kind of have to think about the result rather than getting there. I mean, in this case specifically, like, you know what I mean? Like, why sit there in agony for 2 hours staring at the same question on a worksheet that you don't know how to do, and then when you finally do it, it's wrong, when you could have saved all of that time and learned the material properly if you just asked someone for help? Like, think about the efficiency for a second. Like, like, forget your pride. Not even that it is pride. Like, you think it is, but like your worth isn't defined by how many like math questions you can answer. Just to be
yeah,
good with. But
yeah.
like, just be efficient, you know?
I like that. Being humble is being efficient. I feel like that's a great like poster or a slogan.
Well, I mean, actually, I wasn't exactly talking about like humility as the big concept there in that example, but like you could think of it like that. Like, why am I going to waste time going out there and bragging or relishing in my achievement when I can just accept my reward, feel good, and then work on the next thing and do something even better and put my last thing to shame? You know?
Yeah, yeah.
It's interesting. Maybe it is efficient.
Um, at least, yeah. I don't know if I think it's efficient. I think it's and especially like maybe not being like humble as a whole, but like in those cases where you're talking about where when you're swallowing your pride, when you're like, I guess when you start being a bit too like egotistical, then you sometimes make mistakes, but you don't catch yourself on them, and you keep going down that rabbit hole, or you don't ask for help, where there's always like a resistance to maybe like doing something that you might not be good at, right? Like there's maybe like a bit of a resistance to trying something new because it'll show you to like that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then by being humble, you're kind of eliminating that whole like resistance that's like stopping you, and it's about like always looking forward.
Yeah. and really just looking out for yourself and everyone else is, you know,
Yeah,
and also
exactly.
bragging, like, and all that, like the high ego, it creates expectations for yourself. Like, oh, now I
One,
have to be at this
two,
level every time.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And if I
Yeah,
don't, then
exactly.
I'll feel bad.
Yeah, and I think that again, in humility and confidence and like self-worth are all like really closely intertwined where like um you can't like tie your uh like I think that like kind of related to what you're talking about where your ego develops as a result of you um not feeling the best about yourself or tying your self-worth to how others see you or how or to like your accomplishments, and then like when something goes wrong you suddenly feel like, oh no, I messed up something, I'm a terrible
Yeah.
person, my life is in ruins, and that's just simply not true.
Well, it's just that insecurity at work again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like at the end of the day, just try to be humble. Like, accept genuine praise. Admit when you did something cool and when you did something right. But definitely admit when you're wrong. Try not to preach to people or pretend like you're the all-knowing guy or like you can bench 400 with your pinkies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think something to keep in mind is that and this is like circling back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this,
Oh,
is
yeah.
that it's not easy. Like it's not just flip the switch and, oh, I'm humble now. Oh, I can, like I've accepted myself and I can like admit when I'm wrong, and like
Mhm.
I keep catching myself on it. Like when I don't want to reach out for help, and then I think about, well, why don't I? What's gonna happen if I do?
Yeah.
Right? It's something that's takes time, that takes effort. It's not like I think sometimes like the way we're talking about it, like people can feel like, well, I guess I'll just be humble. Oh wait, I can't. And it's not
Yeah.
that.
Well, I think what you were saying is perfect. Like, just the way to be humble, or like start trying to be humble if you want to start that journey or continue that journey, depending on where you are. Like, just start asking yourself questions and then different questions like, why do I feel bad here? Why do I feel the need to brag? Or like, you know, like just ask these questions and then evaluate your behavior.
1,
Like,
2,
is this
1,
worth
2,
doing?
3, 4.
And also, just a big part of it is just being genuine to yourself. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, just be genuine. I know that, like, like, that horse is heavily beaten to death by this point. but like when they say be yourself, I wouldn't even say be yourself. Just be genuine. Be true
Mhm.
to yourself. Like, be yourself is too loose of a concept for anyone realistically to understand, nonetheless relate to. Like, what does that
Yeah.
even mean? Be yourself? Well, what the hell is myself? Instead, it's like, stay true. And what that means is like, stay true to your strengths, your weaknesses, what your beliefs are. Well, I mean, not everyone knows what their beliefs are, or just like in general,
Right.
basic right and wrongs, but like, well, then let's take a step back. Like, what do you enjoy doing? What do you enjoy? Like, even if it's as simple as, I like sitcoms. I
Yeah.
like pistachio ice cream. Like, I like to roller skate. Like, just take notes of these things. And also, like, it helps to think of goals of like how to like achieve certain things. And then when you get the achievements that you want, like when you achieve something, essentially, whether it's like a reward or progress in a sport or something, or your own growth. Just kind of like accept it, feel good. Well, it's kind of bringing up band again. They say like be happy, but don't be satisfied.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I think you can be satisfied, but don't let that satisfaction be like, oh, all right, I've proved myself now. You don't need to prove anything.
Yeah, you're not trying to prove yourself to others or prove yourself to like yourself or something like that. It's
right.
Be proud of what you've accomplished, but don't let that pride become, I guess, arrogance.
But also consider this, like I think we touched upon this earlier. Everyone is so different. You are born with different genetic codes in a different like geographical, whether it's physical or political geography background, like region, you know? Like whether you were born in Idaho or Mississippi or Maine, or born in the mountains, the desert, or you know, the tropical beaches.
I feel like you're about to start a poem right there.
Huh?
I thought you were ready to start a poem right there.
Oh, no. Or like whether you're born with a certain socioeconomic status, or born with 2 siblings, or I don't know, born without an eye or something. Like, where's I going with this? Or just like, huh? Oh, yeah. Like, your predisposition is different. The way you grow up is different. The things you believe and enjoy are different. Like how can I compare if I live in the tundra all my life and I hunt to get food? How do I compare to a surfer dude in California who, like, I don't know, got a gold medal for surfing the biggest wave? Like how do I even compare to that? There's no waves in Alaska. Like, how do I even do that? I have no relevance to this. So how can I compare? And even when it's like closer connections like that, like you're trying to, like you're in math class with your buddy and your buddy like gets all these higher grades than you. It's like, dude, like I know you want to do well, but like I don't know, like it's not the end of the world when your friend does better than you. I mean, you can feel happy for him, but also like again, why is math class proving your worth?
Yeah, and I think people are really quick to judge. I mean, I don't think this necessarily ties into humility, but just in general that like we're quick to judge oh, someone's better than us based on like their output, like, oh, they did this amazing thing. And then we never like consider like the time they put into it, or like their background and things like that, and like their strengths. And so we always like we're quick to compare, like he did better than me in this, or he did this cool project and I didn't, or I did this cool project and he didn't, and like we make these value judgments really quickly. But it's a little bit harder where you have to think, okay, what went into this? Like you can't just compare that. Like that's not a real or a fair comparison in any way.
Yeah. It's just so different. Everything's so different. Now, that's not to say that, like, at least I believe, like, you'll always, you can't erase, like, prejudgments or any of those things. They're just instantaneous reactions. But there's ways of, like, having that, like, getting that reaction and then being like, wait. Let's take a step back and consider.
Yeah, and I think you need to be humble about being humble in a way where it's like you will like you won't catch yourself every time, or maybe like there's something you're really proud of and you brag about it, or and like in this kind of meta way, you can't let your failure to be humble or whatever like tie into your self-worth, where on this like path to becoming more humble or becoming more accepting of yourself, or kind of all of these things that we've been talking about, is you'll make mistakes and you have to like, you'll be wrong sometimes, and that's what like humility is all about.
Yeah. I feel like we covered a lot of good stuff today, Rish.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts since we're a little over the time?
No, I think we covered a lot about like what I think about humility, and kind of how it's where it's that just remembering to strike that balance where it's not like you're all the way down there where you don't accept yourself, and it's not all the way up there where you're too proud in yourself and you don't see anything else. So
Yeah.
just striking that balance, and that's all I have.
Yeah. Some good stuff. And with that, well, I wish you luck on your journey of humility.
And to you as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure, my friend. And with that, thanks to all of you for listening. I'll see you guys next time.